What's up, guys? This is the Honest Outlaw here, and I just want to do a real quick video. I hear a lot of people talk about night sights. I hear a lot of people talk about fiber optic sights. I hear a lot of people talk about red dots on pistols as well, and a lot of them say pros and cons for night shooting, things like that. I have the opportunity to do a lot of night shooting because I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere and don't have that many neighbors, and the ones I do have don't really care if I shoot at night. So I do train at night because most of the bad stuff that could happen to you that you'd have to use a firearm for, statistically, a lot of it happens at night, so why not train for night too? It's not exactly as simple as just turning on your flashlight and, making the bad guy go away. You need a little bit of training, just like you would need for anything else firearms related, especially when it comes to pistols. Primarily talking about pistol shooting right now. A lot of people rely on pistols for home defense and especially concealed carry. Most people I know don't concealed carry a rifle. It takes a lot of training to shoot a pistol by itself without all the fancy sights and lights, and especially at night. One thing you should also train if you have the opportunity is train malfunction clearing, train reloading, things like that at night, because a lot of that stuff gets more complicated than you'd think. But when we talk about night shooting, it usually branches off in a couple different groups. People like RMRs, which you see here on this PPQ. Some people like regular sights. For that example, I have this Glock here. It just has a fiber optic front with a blacked out rear, but this could go for anything. Any regular sight picture. I've got a CZ P07 here, and this has a blacked out rear with just a gold Tritium front on it there. And then I have a full night sight set up on this M&P. As you see, it's got the Ameriglow eye dots on it with one dot in the rear, one dot in the front. Like I said, you'll find a lot of people in a lot of these different camps. Some people will tell you that you absolutely need a red dot because you put the dot on the target and pull the trigger. You don't need to focus on the front sight. A lot of people will say that for night shooting in general, a red dot is by far superior, and that you should spend the extra $500 to get a quality one like this one, or maybe a Leopold or something like that. And some of the pros of a red dot are real. One big pro of a red dot is that it's easier to shoot at distance for sure. It's faster for moving targets because you don't have to line up your sights and, really focus on that front sight. The red dot just appears in the background. You put that on the target, focus on the target, and pull the trigger. So red dots do have some advantages. Fiber optic sights are great during the day, but people say they are useless at night. Well, in a minute, we'll talk about that, but some of the pros of a fiber optic front sight are the fiber optic is really bright during the day or when any light is cast on it, so it illuminates it and draws your eye to it, so you can superimpose that over the target and make that target go away as well. That's really nice. The downside to a fiber optic, whether using it during the day or at night for serious purposes, however, is that it can break. Not can, they will break. I've had tons of them break. I have lots of fiber optic rod. All you do is simply put another fiber optic rod in there, break it, cut it, whatever you want to do, burn it with a little lighter, and you're good to go. When a fiber optic front sight breaks, it usually just breaks the fiber optic rod that you see there. So when it breaks, it basically just turns into a regular sight. It's kind of like, what's that old joke? I like escalators because when they break, they just turn into stairs. Same thing with a fiber optic front. Now on my P07 here, this is my trusty gun. This was my truck gun for years, and I decided to upgrade it recently. I'll do a video on all the upgrades here shortly. But I went with a blacked out rear and just a Tritium front on it. The reason why I like that is because it's relatively high def. It's hard to see on camera there. It's relatively high def during the day, which aids in faster follow-up shots, and it has a similar sight picture that I'm used to with the blacked out rear. I really like the blacked out rear setup. I wasn't sure about the gold or yellow dot, but it works well, and honestly, as great of a gun as this is, there isn't many sights available for this firearm, so you gotta take what you can get. And lastly, one of the best setups, it's very similar to the Tritium HD, it'll simulate that, is the Ameriglow eye dots. It's actually a Tritium front. It would be the same front sight that you would get on your Tritium HDs, except instead of the U rear with the two dots, it just has the one. I actually prefer that. I've had several sets of Tritium HDs. I actually prefer the Ameriglows, and they're cheaper. But are they better than a red dot or a fiber optic or even half and half? Another option is to use a handheld light, by the way, and we'll talk about that in conjunction with the sights. First up, we'll go with the most basic average sighting system, which is the fiber optic front sight. Are they useless for night shooting? The answer No. Take a look at the footage you see in the background. I don't really lose any speed or accuracy using the fiber optic in conjunction with a weapon light, I should say. I'll talk about the handhelds last. But using a weapon light in conjunction with the fiber optics, I find really easy to do even at night. And again, like I said, I'm shooting close. Maybe that accuracy would diminish at distance, but as far as close shooting, speed shooting, which is what I would do if somebody broke into my house, I'd be like, oh shit, and pop, 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 pop. Regardless, you would be shooting fairly quickly. You'd be shooting as quickly as you could shoot accurately. And in that circumstance, up close, I think fiber optic is just fine for home defense. Like I said, the downside is you might break that rod, but honestly, at night you won't notice. Using a weapon light, it doesn't illuminate the front, it just illuminates the target, and you kind of get a silhouette of the sights of the light bouncing back at you, and they just look like regular black sights. So if you can shoot regular black sights, you can shoot these at night with really no issue at all. Now the CZP-07, I would have to say that with the large tritium front over these, I guess I'm going to change my mind a little bit here and say there is a slight amount of a speed change using these, because it's similar to using the fiber optic during the day, right? The tritium draws your eye to the front sight. However, a lot of that is a training issue as well. If you present your pistol to a target, you should have done that enough times to where the sights naturally align. And that's kind of the key to night shooting. It's sort of like point shooting, right? People dismiss point shooting, but I really don't, because up close within 7 yards, you're basically point shooting. I did a video where I shot this Glock right here up to 50 yards without sights on the gun at all. The big thing I like about this sight setup over this sight setup is that it's durable. There might be situations where you would need sights even at night, and these will still be there and these may not. These Trijicon sights in general are super durable, super high quality. Now, is there an advantage between the regular night sight front and the blacked out rear versus the IDOT front and the Trijicon front sight? I would say no. Just for me. Now, again, this is for me, but I would say no, that this is probably just as accurate, just as quick as this, because honestly, I don't really look at my rear sight. Your rear sight is a reference point for your front sight. You should be focused on your front, right? At least that's the way I shoot. And up close, even out to 15 yards, point shooting with good fundamentals is relatively easy. So the rear sight, it's just in the background. It's blurry and it doesn't really matter. Honestly, I would say it's more of a deterrent than anything, because you could present your pistol a little bit off where you only see the rear sight and not the front, and you could think this is the front sight. As opposed to this, there's only one sight there that you have to worry about, and it's sitting in the back of the notch. Very similar to the red dot, which, yes, I will not deny, is probably the easiest to shoot at night. As long as you get the setting correct. That's another issue as well. One thing that I've heard about a lot that I ran into today myself is that I was shooting this pistol today for the review, and I left the red dot on the setting that I would have it at during the day. So when you pull that up at night and you try to get a sight picture, all you see is a giant red blur. And not only does that affect your acquiring the target, but it also affects your night vision, because it's very, very, very bright. But if you keep this set for nighttime and you keep it on your nightstand, let's say, you won't have an issue. And during the day, you either have a chance to turn it up. If you don't, it's pretty easy to use that window or use a raised front sight. Definitely one argument for a raised suppressor sight using a red dot. The red dot is faster. I would say it is more accurate at night. It's a little easier to use, again, just simply because a red dot is a little more faster and accurate to use during the day. But there are some cons to having a red dot as well. There's no real right answer here. It adds weight, for number one. It decreases some reliability, even with pistols that are meant for it. This pistol, this PPQ match, I have had red dot related malfunctions with this pistol, and I also did with this Glock 17. Now, both of these pistols are extremely reliable without the red dot, so I'd have to attribute a little of that to adding weight to the slide. But what are you going to do? It's not a perfect world. Now, using it in conjunction with the handheld light, which I don't have a ton of training with, I do it simply because shit might happen, my light may not work, is really why I train with a white light. Now, if you're concealed carrying and you only use a weapon light, you could run into a lot of problems using those techniques. For an example, I can think of, you think some guy is breaking into your house, and you walk up there and present your gun to him, well, that could potentially be a crime. You think he's breaking into a car, you present your gun to him, put a light on there, say what you're doing, and what he's really doing is just trying to drop off your mail early in the morning, or he just lost his keys under the car, or whatever happened. He's looking for his lost cat, and now you've drawn a gun on him, whereas you could have a weapon light with your hand on or you could have a regular handheld light, and if need be, then you can engage, drop this light, go two hands, and engage with the weapon light, or, again, use your training, shoot up here and here. Now, what I was doing in the video a lot was a tactic that a couple of my friends who are police officers have taught me. And, you know, it's kind of a controversial tactic where you hold the light way above your head. So if somebody shoots back at the light, they shoot at your hand above your head, and then you engage them with one hand. Well, I actually prefer that technique a lot of times. Sometimes I feel more stable shooting with just one hand than I do with the classic FBI technique, or even the technique where you hold the light like that, simply because I have more training with it above my head, because that's how I trained when I was younger. Like I said, I grew up with a lot of police officers and went to school to be a police officer. It didn't end up being so, but I still have a lot of the training, so that's just what I feel more comfortable with, and a lot of times that's what you should go with. So, which side up works better with this light? Well, honestly, I think that is where night sights come into play a little bit, because when you're illuminating behind the gun, you would think that it would light up the fiber optic sight, but what it actually does is kind of black out your sight picture a little more. I feel like I have a more accurate sight picture using a weapon light with none of the sights illuminated than I do illuminating the sights with the light. Now that may be just me, but I felt like there was an advantage using night sights in conjunction with a handheld light. But again, that's just me. So all in all, I really don't think it makes that much of a difference. Now, I know you probably sat to this video and then you're like, well, what the hell? You really don't think it makes that much of a difference? Well, that's just the conclusion that I came to, just because, man, I've shot a bunch of rounds. Like I said, I think I shot 200 rounds before I did this video, just to make sure that I was correct in my assumptions. And, you know, that's just how I feel. I think I shot just as well with the weapon lights. I think I shot equally as well with all of these pistols up close, with maybe a slight edge towards the red dot. And I think I'd shot almost as fast with maybe a slight edge toward the red dot, and then maybe this one being a little bit faster than these two. But again, this has a full set of night sights. This one has fiber optic. I feel like I shot the same with either one. And then with a handheld light, I feel like I honestly felt like maybe it's, and again, this could be biased. This could be just because I've shot this pistol a lot more than I've shot these pistols, but I felt like with the handheld light, this pistol was the easiest to engage with the single red dot up front. Now, some of that is because I have more training with iron sights than I do with a red dot, and a lot of times, especially when I'm shooting one-handed, I find myself fishing for a dot, you know, and it feels a little unnatural at night when I'm doing that. And not only that, but I don't have to worry about which dot I'm looking for at night when I only have one. And it illuminates better on the light, so I can see that front sight, acquire that target, and pull the trigger. I hope that's not confusing, but it probably is. But the reality is, I think if I had to go with just one sight setup, it would be this one, because it's bright enough during the day, and at night I feel the most confident with it. And if you can afford it, a red dot's not bad either. But concealed carrying with a red dot, I've seen a lot of people on YouTube do it. I've never seen one in real life do it. But if you do it, it's actually not that much weight and it's not that much bulk. There's other problems with the red dot as well. For example, you get blood or mud in here, it's dead. Not only that, but people who use suppressor sights in case your red dot breaks, good luck with that. What are you gonna do, wrench it off and throw it away? Better off using the notch up here that Tritium supplies. I think that's actually to keep the red dot more durable, so when it hits, it doesn't hit on a flat surface, but it's actually possible to put your target right in the middle of that V and light that bad boy up. But I hope this helped. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. If it was super confusing, I'm really sorry about that. Share the video, that also helps out. There's also a link to a homeless shelter in the description, so if you want to slide down there, it's a youth homeless shelter in Ames that could really use your support. Please help out your local homeless shelters, and remember to recycle. Check you later.